I'm Mikey Sklar, and I live in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. I've lived here for about 1 year, and I'm working on a eco-friendly hotel made of garbage with my girlfriend Wendy. Previous to that, I had been living in New York, working on Wall Street. In my spare time, where I wasn't working for a company, I would make things at home.
We met and our bond was that we were making things together, and that was what we both loved to do, so this gave us a much bigger canvas. We purchased an RV park, partly because it had every 15 feet resources, power, utility, sewer, water. So we're using this basic infrastructure and building on that what we hope to be lodging for maybe 10 or 12 rooms, and a venue, which is an essential part, which is where we can host workshops on sustainable building, harvesting rainwater, whatever the case may be.
So the town we live in, Truth or Consequences, is going through a sort of growth period. We're seeing a lot of people who are from big cities. So kind of like us, they're big city kids. They're coming from New York or LA mostly, and it's kind of strange to come here and see a scene, where there's people who are making cool environments and art galleries and doing interesting things in what is basically the middle of nowhere. We're 100 miles from the nearest city with any reasonable population.
No one knows if this is going to work. No one's certain, and nothing's certain, But in these kind of shaky times, I personally felt much better about putting my time into knowledge, how to weld, how to sew, how to grow food, how to create power.
We basically came here and hired a local contractor, and we said, show us everything, show us every tool you use, make us do the work, we want to learn how to do this. And we've become pretty independent at this point. I feel a lot more comfortable running through our liquid assets and putting it into land and power and food that we'll harvest here than having an account full of cash. I believe that the property we work on and the work we're doing will be much more valuable than that sitting in the bank for the next 50 years. So I was really comfortable just spending my retirement, or will be spending my retirement money over the next year here just to build. And I think a lot of people are starting to look at their savings accounts that way and think, what is this for anyway? I should apply to something I actually believe in, as opposed to these abstract stocks I don't even understand.
I hope, project that because we'll have a venue, that we'll be able to create weekends or 5-day periods or 10-day periods. This conference is going on, these 3 people are speaking on the subject of whatever, might have something to do with the environment, might have something to do with making things. Because we're here at Truth or Consequences, we can take those same things and open them up to the public. So every time we have a speaker or a book author or a maker, our community can come in and learn as well. So I feel like it serves sort of a dual purpose,
I'm really looking forward to having a venue and lodging that people, like internet people, really, people who are very involved in internet and have communities on there, can come here together even and meet their community here. Because right now, we end up being stuck at Marriott's at South by Southwest or at Maker Faire, and they're stupid. They're horrible fucking hotels.
Everyone's always offended by where they have to stay.
Yeah, there was nothing worse about Maker Faire than the hotel. And every day we had to go break a bunch of stuff just to feel good about it.
Every day I broke the parking thing, the gate. I just got out of my car, ripped it off there on the side, I went through because I was so offended.
It wasn't working well.
I was paying to be there. I had this broken machine that I was paying for.
Yeah, it's like $20 a day to park, and we had to break the machine every day for them.
And the guys who worked there were just like, I'm not getting paid enough to deal with this lunatic.
Occasionally, we'd be behind a parked car who was unwilling to deal with the gate and just sit there. So Wendy would get out of our truck behind them, rip off the gate, throw it on the ground. The point is, these chain hotels are stupid. The chain restaurants are stupid. I don't want to be any part of that. And the more places like us that come along and say, we want to provide for people who don't want to be part of that society. Right now, what we're building on this RV park is rooms. And we're ordering shipping containers from a company that's about 180 miles from here, and they will customize them for us. So we buy old used shipping containers. We're using 1.5 containers to make a room here, and that will be where our guests stay. And it's a pretty basic room, just a bed and tables and bathroom, shower, sink kind of thing. Those containers connect directly into our RV hookups, so we don't have to do a whole lot of wiring and stuff on the premises. And each of those containers will be insulated with the material we make on site called papercrete. And Papercrete is something we're going to be using for fencing here, as well as insulating the containers. It's a material that can provide insulation almost to the level of straw bale, which is pretty much one of the most insulative green things that you can work with. The other thing we're doing here is we're just focusing a lot on all the building materials we use being found or donated or garbage, but not new. So all the wood we've used to date has been donated from old garbage, and the tools we've used have all been refurbed or used tools. We haven't bought new.
We stole utility poles.
Yeah, the utility poles that we're using for our fencing. We got this from the city. They had been replacing their telephone poles.
But you know, I mean, I think the utility poles are a good example of a particular thing, which is like, here these poles exist. They're creosote, you know, saturated. It's already made. It's sitting in the environment. Okay, you know, that sucks, but we can at least hack them into new form, you know, cut them down with a chainsaw and make use of them. They're here anyway.
I'm finding more and more that the things you really do yourself are really the more environmentally friendly things. Like making Papercrete is probably one of the most environmentally friendly things I can think of, because we spend the day in the dumpster taking stuff back out and back to our house, which is always fun, and then, you know, mixing it up and making a fence out of it. Like, I feel like we're upcycling things. Something that was just a stupid piece of newspaper has now become a useful fence sound barrier or insulation for our homes. And so I really like things like water catchment or solar water heating. Those things are starting to make a lot more sense to me than just buying a whole bunch of solar panels and being like, it's green. We're green because we produce power, even though it's going to take 4 years to break even on all the crap we bought because there's that much fuel went into the panels. So I'm skeptical about a lot of the commercial green movement, but certainly not about things that people do themselves.